So proud of Benjamin for getting into Harvard Medical School. My brilliant son is going to be a doctor. Those words on my father's Facebook post made me stop breathing. Not because I had a half-brother named Benjamin that I never knew about. Not because my father had another Facebook account under the name Robert Hayes. But because just 3 hours earlier, that same father had told me we could not afford the application fee for my state university transfer. My name is Jackson Turner. I was 19 years old, sitting in my cramped dorm room at community college, eating ramen noodles for the third night in a row because my meal plan had run out and I could not afford to refill it until my work-study paycheck came through. The room smelled like mold and old carpet, and my roommate was snoring loudly in the bed 4 feet away from mine. I was scrolling through Facebook on my phone, putting off studying for my chemistry midterm because I was too hungry to concentrate, when the algorithm decided to destroy my entire world with a single friend suggestion. Robert Hayes. Do you know Robert? The profile picture was small on my phone screen, but I would have recognized that face anywhere. The same square jaw I saw in the mirror every morning. The same receding hairline that had started claiming territory on my own head at 17. The same crooked smile that my mother said made her fall in love with him 20 years ago. But the name was wrong. My father was Robert Turner, not Robert Hayes. And in the profile picture, he was standing in front of a house that looked like something from a magazine, with his arm around a blonde woman who was definitely not my mother. I clicked on the profile before I could stop myself, my thumb moving of its own accord, like my body knew something my mind was not ready to accept. The cover photo loaded first, a family portrait that looked like it had been professionally taken. My father in a suit that probably cost more than our rent, standing next to the blonde woman who was wearing a dress I recognized from when my mother had pointed it out in a store window, sighing that some people can afford nice things. 2 teenagers flanked them, a young man who looked to be in his early 20s, and a teenage girl with perfect teeth and perfectly straightened hair. The banner across the bottom of the photo read, "The Hayes family, blessed and grateful." My hands started shaking. I set the phone down on my desk, then picked it up again immediately, unable to look away. I clicked on the photos section of the profile. The most recent post was from 3 hours ago. 3 hours, while I had been on the phone with him, begging him to help with the $70 application fee for the state university, telling him it was my only chance to get out of community college, listening to him sigh and say, "Jackson, we've talked about this. Money is really tight right now. Your mother and I are barely making ends meet." 3 hours ago, he had posted a photo of Benjamin in a Harvard Medical School sweatshirt, holding an acceptance letter, with the caption that was now burned into my brain. So proud of Benjamin for getting into Harvard Medical School. My brilliant son is going to be a doctor. I scrolled down. Each new photo, another dagger in my chest. There was my father at a country club, playing golf with other men in polo shirts and khakis. The caption read, "Beautiful Saturday at Riverside Country Club. Shot 2 under par." The country club membership alone would cost more than my mother made in 6 months at the diner. There was my father at a graduation ceremony, hugging Benjamin, who was wearing the cap and gown of Phillips Exeter Academy. The caption, "My son the valedictorian. Next stop, Harvard." Phillips Exeter Academy. I had looked at that school once, just out of curiosity, when my high school guidance counselor mentioned it as one of the best prep schools in the country. Tuition was $60,000 a year, per year, for high school. There was my father with the family on a yacht, an actual yacht, not a boat, not a fishing vessel, but a gleaming white yacht with multiple decks. The caption, "Mediterranean cruise with the family, living our best life." The photo was dated last July, when he told us he was at a sales conference in Cleveland. Last July, when my mother worked 16-hour shifts for 7 days straight to pay for my fall semester textbooks. Last July, when I sold plasma twice a week, feeling dizzy and nauseous afterward, just to have enough money for gas and groceries. I kept scrolling, unable to stop myself, like picking at a wound that would not stop bleeding. Christmas photos in front of a 12-foot tree in what looked like a mansion's living room. Spring break photos from a ski resort in Aspen. Summer photos from a beach house in the Hamptons. Birthday parties with 3-tier cakes and dozens of guests. First day of school photos in front of a circular driveway where a BMW and a Mercedes were casually parked. Every photo was tagged with locations and people. Riverside, Connecticut, the wealthy suburb 45 minutes from where my mother and I lived. Margaret Hayes was tagged as his wife, a pediatrician with her own practice. Benjamin Hayes was 22, 3 years older than me, pre-med at Harvard. Emily Hayes was 17, a senior at Phillips Exeter Academy, captain of the equestrian team. Equestrian team. Horses. This teenage girl had horses, plural, while I had been wearing the same pair of shoes with holes in them for 2 years because $30 for new ones was $30 we did not have. I found a photo album titled Emily's Sweet 16. The party had been held at the country club. There was a DJ, professional lighting, what looked like 100 guests, and a 3-tier cake that probably cost more than our monthly food budget. Emily was wearing a dress that I recognized from a window display my mother and I had walked past once. She had stopped and stared at it for a full minute before shaking her head and walking away. The dress cost $800. I knew because I had looked it up afterward, wondering what it was like to live in a world where a 16-year-old could wear $800. In one of the photos, my father was dancing with Emily, both of them laughing. The caption, written by Margaret Hayes, read, "The best daddy-daughter dance. Robert is such an amazing father. Emily is so lucky to have him. An amazing father." I thought about my 16th birthday. My mother had worked a double shift, but still managed to bake me a cake from a box mix. We could not afford a party, but she had saved up to take me to Applebee's. Just the two of us, because my father was traveling for work. She had given me $40. I found out later she had skipped lunches for 2 weeks to save it, and told me to buy something special for myself. I had spent it on a used chemistry textbook for my AP class because I knew we could not afford a new one. I clicked on Benjamin's profile next. His most recent post was about his Harvard Medical School acceptance. The comments were full of congratulations from friends and family members I had never heard of. Aunts and uncles who shared my father's eyes or nose or chin, but who had never been mentioned in our house. Grandparents who were apparently alive and well and commenting, "So proud of our grandson," when I had been told all my grandparents died before I was born. Benjamin's profile was like a catalog of everything I had ever wanted, but been told we could not afford. SAT prep courses with private tutors, summer programs at Yale and Princeton, volunteering trips to build hospitals in South America, the kind that look good on medical school applications and cost thousands of dollars to participate in. A car for his 16th birthday. Not just any car, but a BMW with a red bow on it, sitting in their circular driveway. I found a post from 2 years ago where Benjamin was complaining about having to choose between Johns Hopkins and Harvard for undergrad. Complaining about having to choose between two of the best universities in the world. Meanwhile, I had been rejected from my state school because my application was incomplete. I could not afford to send my SAT scores, which cost $12 per school. Emily's profile was more of the same. Photos from equestrian competitions where she jumped horses over fences that looked impossibly high. Her horses, because of course there was more than one, were named Shadow and moonlight. She had posts about shopping trips to New York City with her mother, where they stayed at the plaza and saw Broadway shows. She had photos from her summer internship at her mother's medical practice, where she was exploring her passion for medicine. She had a post complaining that her father had gotten her the iPhone 14 Pro in the wrong color for Christmas, and she had to wait a whole week to exchange it. That phone cost more than our car was worth. I found their mother's profile, Margaret Hayes, MD. She ran a successful pediatric practice in Riverside. Her profile was full of photos from medical conferences in exotic locations, charity galas where she and my father posed informal, where that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe combined, and wine-tasting trips to Napa Valley. There was a photo from their 20th wedding anniversary last year. 20 years. My father had been with this woman for 20 years. I was 19. He had been with her longer than he had been with my mother. We were the affair. We were the mistake. We were the complication he had to manage while living his real life in Riverside. The anniversary photos were from a party at their country club. There must have been 200 guests. There was a band, not a DJ, but an actual band in tuxedos. There was a 5-tier cake and champagne toasts, and my father giving a speech about how Margaret was the love of his life, and their children were his greatest accomplishment. Their children, not all his children, their children. I went back to my father's profile, Robert Hayes's profile, and found a post from my birthday 2 months ago, September 15th, the day I turned 19, the day my mother had scraped together enough money to take me to dinner at a local Italian restaurant, where we split an entree because full portions were too expensive. The day my father had called to say happy birthday, but could not visit because he was stuck in meetings all day. On Robert Hayes's Facebook, September 15th showed photos from Emily's equestrian competition. My father was there, cheering her on, taking photos of her on her horse, looking every inch the proud father. The competition was in Virginia, a 6-hour drive from where my mother and I lived. He had driven 6 hours to watch his daughter ride a horse on my birthday. I set my phone down and ran to the bathroom, barely making it to the toilet before I vomited. My roommate did not even wake up. I sat on the cold tile floor, my back against the wall, trying to process what I had discovered. My father had another family, a real family, a family he had chosen to prioritize and support and love openly. We were just, what? An obligation? A mistake he could not erase? A monthly payment he had to make to keep his real life intact? I thought about every sacrifice my mother had made, every double shift, every skipped meal, every time she said, maybe next month, when I asked for something. I thought about her hands, cracked and raw, from washing dishes at the diner, from cleaning houses on weekends for extra money, from doing everything she could to provide for me. I thought about myself at 14, getting my first job at a grocery store, bagging groceries for tips that I brought home and put in the jar on the kitchen counter marked college fund. I thought about selling plasma, feeling the needle in my arm, watching my blood flow into a bag, worth $25 that would buy groceries for a week. I thought about every time I had felt guilty for existing, for costing money, for needing things. Every time I had said, I'm fine, when I was hungry. Every time I had said, I don't need it, when I did. Every time I had said, maybe later, when I knew later would never come. And the whole time, my father was living in a mansion in Riverside, belonging to a country club, sending his son to Harvard, buying his daughter horses. I called my mother. It was late, past midnight, but she answered on the second ring. She always answered when I called, no matter what time it was. Jackson? What's wrong, honey? Are you okay? Mom, I need you to sit down. I'm at work, honey. I'm covering the night shift. What's going on? You're scaring me. Mom, does Dad have another family? The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. I could hear the sounds of the diner in the background, the coffee machine, the grill, someone calling out an order. Mom, how did you find out? Those 4 words hit me harder than finding the Facebook profile. She knew. She had known. And she had never told me. You knew. My voice cracked like I was 13 again. Like I was a child discovering that adults could lie. You knew he had another family? Jackson, it's complicated. It's not complicated. He has a wife named Margaret and 2 kids named Benjamin and Emily, and they live in a mansion in Riverside. Benjamin goes to Harvard. Emily has horses. They go on vacations to Europe. How long have you known? Jackson, please, calm down. How long have you known? Another pause. I could picture her in the diner, probably hiding in the kitchen or the break room, wearing her pink polyester uniform that she had to wash every night because she only had 2 of them. 6 years, she finally said. I've known for 6 years. 6 years. I felt like I might throw up again. You've known for 6 years and never told me? What was I supposed to tell you? You were 13 years old. You were just starting high school. You needed to focus on your education, not on the fact that my father has been lying to me my entire life. Jackson, please, let me explain. Can you come home? We need to talk about this in person. I'll be there in 90 minutes. Drive safely, please. I love you. I love you too, Mom. I threw some clothes in a backpack and headed for my car, a 2003 Honda Civic with 240,000 miles on it that made a grinding noise when I turned left and had a crack across the windshield that had been there so long I barely noticed it anymore. The check engine light had been on for 6 months, but as long as it still ran, I could not afford to find out what was wrong with it. The drive from my college to our apartment gave me 90 minutes to think, to replay every memory through this new lens. Every business trip was a visit to his real family. Every important meeting was probably Benjamin's school play or Emily's horse show. Every conference call that meant he could not come to my baseball games or school concerts was just him choosing them over me. I remembered being 8 years old, waiting by the window for him to come home for my birthday. He had promised to be there, promised we would go to the arcade and play games and eat pizza. I had waited for hours, my face pressed against the glass, watching every car that drove by. He never came. He called the next day to apologize, said an emergency had come up at work, promised to make it up to me. He never did. I wondered now what he had really been doing that day. Probably at Benjamin's Little League game or Emily's dance recital, being the father to them that he never was to me. I remembered being 12 and needing glasses. The school nurse had sent a note home saying I was squinting at the board and needed an eye exam. My mother had saved for 3 months to afford the exam and the cheapest frames at Walmart. Even then, we could only afford 1 pair, so I lived in terror of breaking them. Meanwhile, Emily probably had designer frames, multiple pairs, never worrying about what would happen if they broke. I remembered being 16 and wanting to go to a summer science program at the local university. It was $500 for 2 weeks. $500 might as well have been $5 million. My father said it was too expensive, that we needed to be practical, that I could learn just as much from library books. That same summer, according to the Facebook posts I had just seen, he took his real family on a 2-week vacation to Hawaii that probably cost $10,000. Every memory was tainted now. Every moment of my childhood that I had thought was about poverty was actually about priority. We were not poor. We were just not worth investing in. Our apartment complex looked even more depressing than usual when I pulled into the parking lot. The security light was broken, casting half the lot in darkness. Someone's trash bag had split open near the dumpster, and no one had cleaned it up. The apartment next to ours had been evicted last week, and their furniture was still piled on the curb, getting rained on and rotting. I could hear TVs through thin walls as I climbed the stairs to our second-floor unit. The couple in 2B were fighting again, their voices carrying through the walls. Someone in 2D was playing music too loud, the bass making the handrail vibrate under my hand. Our apartment door stuck, like it always did, and I had to shoulder it open. The living room was dark except for the light from the kitchen, where I could see my mother sitting at our small table, still wearing her diner uniform. She looked older than her 42 years. Her hair, which she dyed herself from a box to cover the gray, was pulled back in a ponytail. Her face was drawn with exhaustion, and there were new lines around her eyes that I had not noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed, but had not wanted to see them, had not wanted to acknowledge how hard her life was. "Hi, honey," she said, trying to smile. I sat down across from her at the table we had bought at a yard sale 8 years ago. One of the legs was shorter than the others, and we had wedged a folded piece of cardboard under it to keep it from wobbling. "Tell me everything," I said. She sighed and rubbed her eyes. "Where do I start?" "The beginning. How did you meet him?" "I was 22. I was working at a bar near the airport, trying to save money for nursing school. Your father came in during what he said was a layover. He was charming, funny, well-dressed. He said he was recently divorced, that his ex-wife had taken him for everything in the settlement, that he was starting over. But he wasn't divorced. No, he was married to Margaret, had been for 3 years at that point. They already had Benjamin, and Margaret was pregnant with Emily. So, when you got pregnant with me, I thought he would leave her. He promised he would. He said he just needed time to figure out the finances to make sure he could support both families during the transition. But the transition never came. Why didn't you leave him when you realized he wasn't going to leave her? Because by then I had you, and I had no money, no education, no family to help. My parents had disowned me when I got pregnant out of wedlock. Your father was the only support I had. But surely you could have gotten child support through the courts. With what lawyer? With what money to pay for a lawyer? And your father made it very clear that if I caused problems, if I tried to expose him, he would make sure we got nothing. He said he would claim I was lying about him being your father, demand a paternity test, drag it out in court until I was bankrupt. But a paternity test would prove he was my father. Yes, but by then I would have spent money I didn't have on lawyers, and he would have hidden his assets, claimed he was unemployed, moved money around so it looked like he had nothing. Rich people know how to hide their wealth, Jackson. Poor people like us just know how to survive. He's rich. The word felt foreign in my mouth. My father and rich did not belong in the same sentence. Your father makes about $350,000 a year as regional sales director for Pharmatech Industries. I felt the floor drop out from under me. $350,000 a year, while we scraped by on whatever my mother could make at the diner and cleaning houses. How much does he give us? $2,000 a month. That's it. $24,000 a year out of $350,000. That's what he decided we were worth. And you just accepted that? What choice did I have? Take the money he offered or get nothing and watch you starve? You could have told me the truth. When? When you were 5 and asking why Daddy didn't live with us. When you were 10 and wondering why other kids had more toys. When you were 15 and working at the grocery store to help pay bills. What would knowing have accomplished except making you angry and bitter? I'm angry and bitter now. But at least you got to have a childhood first. At least you got to believe that your father loved you, but was just struggling financially. At least you got to believe that being poor wasn't a choice someone made for you. But it was a choice. His choice. Yes. And now you know that. But would knowing earlier have changed anything except making you miserable sooner? I thought about that. Would knowing at 13 have helped? Or would it have just made me angry and distracted and unable to focus on school? Would I have confronted him and ruined any chance of getting even the small amount of support we did get? When did you find out about his other family? I asked. When you were 13. I was trying to get a credit card to pay for your school supplies, and they ran a credit check. It showed I had never been married. When I confronted your father, he admitted everything. The marriage to Margaret, the children, the house in Riverside. What did you do? I cried for 3 days. Then I picked myself up and kept going because I had a son to raise. Did you ever think about telling Margaret? Every day for 6 years. But what would that accomplish? Either she already knows and has accepted it, or she doesn't know and finding out would destroy her children's lives. Why should Benjamin and Emily suffer? Because their father is a liar. They're suffering now. I just found out about them 3 hours ago, and I'm about to destroy their lives. My mother looked at me sharply. Jackson, what are you planning? I'm going to drive to Riverside tomorrow and introduce myself to my stepmother and half-siblings. You can't do that. Why not? They deserve to know the truth. What about what you deserve? You deserve to finish college. You deserve to have a future. If you blow up your father's life, he'll cut us off completely. We're already cut off, Mom. $24,000 a year when he makes $350,000, when he's sending Benjamin to Harvard Medical School, when he's buying Emily horses. We're already getting the scraps from his table. Scraps are better than nothing. Are they? Are they really? Because I'm starting to think nothing would be better than this. At least then we wouldn't be dependent on someone who sees us as an inconvenience. Jackson, please. Think about this. Sleep on it. Don't make a decision when you're angry. I've been sleeping on it for 19 years without knowing it. I'm done sleeping. We talked until 3 in the morning, going in circles. My mother begged me to leave it alone, to take the money and finish college and move on with my life. I could not make her understand that knowing the truth had changed everything. I could not unknow what I now knew. I could not go back to being grateful for scraps when I knew my father was serving a feast to his other family. I spent the rest of the night in my childhood bedroom, which was really just a corner of the living room that we had sectioned off with a curtain when I got too old to share my mother's room. My room had just enough space for a twin bed and a small dresser. My clothes hung on a rod my mother had installed between 2 walls. My desk was a piece of plywood balanced on 2 sawhorses. I lay in bed looking at the ceiling, at the water stain that had been there since I was 12, shaped like a rabbit if you looked at it the right way. I had spent countless nights staring at that stain, dreaming of a different life. A life where my father came home every night. A life where my mother did not work 3 jobs. A life where I could have things without feeling guilty. Now I knew that life existed. It just existed for Benjamin and Emily, not for me. I must have dozed off eventually, because I woke up to the sound of my mother getting ready for her morning shift. It was 6 a.m., and she was trying to be quiet, but our apartment was so small that every sound carried. I heard her in the bathroom, brushing her teeth with the toothbrush she had been using for 6 months because she kept forgetting to buy a new one. I heard her in the kitchen, making instant coffee, because real coffee was too expensive. I heard her gathering her things, her keys jingling, her shoes squeaking on the linoleum. "I have to go to work," she said softly, thinking I was still asleep. "Please don't do anything rash. Please." After she left, I got up and made my own instant coffee, black, because we were out of milk. I sat at our wobbly table and pulled up the Facebook profiles again, screenshots and all, building a complete dossier of my father's double life. I found his LinkedIn profile, where he listed his position at Pharmatech Industries, Regional Sales Director, managing a team of 50 sales representatives, responsible for a territory that generated $30 million in annual revenue. His profile photo was professional, him in an expensive suit with an expensive watch, looking every inch the successful executive. I found property records for the house in Riverside, purchased 15 years ago for $800,000, now worth approximately $1.4 million according to Zillow. For bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, a pool house, a 3-car garage, sitting on 2 acres of professionally landscaped property. I found Margaret's medical practice website, Hayes Pediatrics, established 10 years ago, with 2 other doctors and a staff of 12. The website had a photo of the office, a beautiful modern building with lots of windows and a playground for young patients. Margaret's bio talked about her commitment to providing comprehensive care to children, her degrees from Yale and Columbia, her residency at Boston Children's Hospital. I found Benjamin's Harvard profile, pre-med major, dean's list every semester, president of the biology club, volunteer at Mass General Hospital. His LinkedIn already listed summer internships at pharmaceutical companies, probably arranged by my father, and research positions that undergrads would kill for. I found Emily's Instagram, which was public. Hundreds of photos of her perfect life. Her horses, her friends, her bedroom that was bigger than our entire apartment. Spring break trips, summer vacations, shopping hauls, where she spent more on clothes in one afternoon than my mother made in a week. There was a photo from last month of Emily and my father at a father-daughter dance at her school. She was wearing a designer dress, and he was in a tuxedo. The caption read, "Best dad in the world. So lucky to have you. Best dad in the world." I thought about all the father-son events I had missed. The Boy Scout camping trips I could not go on because we could not afford the equipment. The Little League teams I could not join because we could not afford the fees. The school father-son breakfast I went to alone, telling everyone my dad was traveling for work, sitting by myself while other boys laughed with their fathers over pancakes. By noon, I had made my decision. I was going to drive to Riverside and introduce myself to the Hayes family. They deserved to know the truth, and I deserved to stop being a secret. I put on my best clothes, which were not very good, khakis from Goodwill, and a polo shirt that was starting to pill. I tried to make my hair look presentable, but I needed a haircut that I had been putting off because it cost $15. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw my father's face looking back at me, just poorer and angrier. The drive to Riverside took 45 minutes, but it felt like crossing into another world. The roads got wider and smoother. The houses got bigger and farther apart. The cars got newer and more expensive. Everything looked clean and maintained and cared for in a way that nothing in my neighborhood did. The Hayes house was on a quiet street lined with massive oak trees. Every house on the street looked like it belonged in a magazine. Perfect lawns, perfect driveways, perfect lives behind perfect windows. I parked my embarrassing car on the street, took a deep breath, and walked up the driveway. My legs felt like they were made of water. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was it. Once I rang that doorbell, there was no going back. The doorbell was one of those video doorbells that probably cost more than my phone. I could see the camera looking at me, recording me, preserving this moment forever. A woman answered the door. Margaret Hayes, my father's real wife. She was beautiful in that expensive way. Blonde hair that was professionally highlighted, subtle makeup that looked natural, but probably took an hour to apply. Clothes that looked casual, but were clearly designer. She looked like the kind of woman who had never worried about money in her life. "Can I help you?" she asked, polite but wary, the way rich people talk to strangers who might be selling something. "Mrs. Hayes, my name is Jackson Turner. I think we need to talk about Robert." She smiled, confused. "I'm sorry. I think you have the wrong house. My husband's name is Robert, but our last name is Hayes, not Turner." "I know. Turner is his other last name, the one he uses with his other family." The smile froze on her face. For a moment, we just stared at each other, her trying to process what I had just said, me trying to hold my nerve. "I think there's been some mistake," she said slowly. "There's been a mistake, but not the kind you think. My name is Jackson Turner. Robert Turner is my father. He's been maintaining 2 families for my entire life, and I thought you should know." "That's impossible." I pulled out my phone and showed her a recent photo, one my mother had taken just last month at her birthday dinner. My father sitting between my mother and me at a restaurant, his arm around my shoulders, smiling at the camera. Margaret stared at the photo like it was a snake that might bite her. This must be photoshopped." "It's not. That's my mother, Linda. They've been together for 21 years. I'm 19. But Robert and I have been married for 23 years. "I know. That's why I'm here." Behind her, I saw movement. A young man appeared, Benjamin, my half-brother. In person, he looked even more like the golden boy his Facebook portrayed. Tall, athletic, perfect teeth, wearing a Harvard t-shirt like it was casual, like attending the best university in the world was no big deal. "Mom, who's at the door?" Margaret did not answer. She was still staring at the photo on my phone. "Mom." Benjamin stepped closer, looking at me with curiosity. "Can we help you?" "This young man," Margaret said, her voice barely above a whisper, "says he's your father's son." Benjamin laughed. It was a confident laugh, the laugh of someone who had never had his world pulled out from under him. "That's ridiculous. I don't have any brothers." "You do, actually," I said. "I'm 3 years younger than you. My name is Jackson." "This is obviously some kind of scam," Benjamin said, moving protectively in front of his mother. "You're probably after money. I don't want your money. I want the truth to be known." The truth is that you're a stranger making crazy accusations about our family. The truth is that your father has been living a double life for 20 years. That was when Emily appeared, coming down the grand staircase that was visible from the foyer. She moved like a dancer, all grace and confidence, the kind of girl who had never doubted her place in the world. "What's going on?" she asked. "This person is claiming Dad has another family," Benjamin told her, his voice dripping with disdain. Emily laughed, the same confident laugh as her brother. "That's insane." "It's not insane," I said. "It's the truth, and I have proof." I handed Margaret the folder I had prepared. Every screenshot, every photo, every piece of evidence I had collected. My birth certificate, with the father's name left blank because he refused to sign it. Photos spanning 19 years. Financial documents I had managed to find online. Margaret opened the folder with shaking hands. Benjamin and Emily crowded around her, looking over her shoulders. With each page, the color drained from their faces. "This can't be real," Emily whispered. "Look at the dates," I said. "Every business trip, every conference, every time he missed one of your events because of work emergencies, he was with us. And every time he missed my events for the same reasons, he was with you." "This is fake," Benjamin insisted, but his voice had lost its certainty. "You faked all of this." Call him right now, I said. Ask him where he is. He'll say he's at a conference in Boston. He's actually at my mom's apartment, 10 miles from here. Margaret pulled out her phone, the latest iPhone in a designer case, and called my father. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hit the right buttons. She put it on speaker. "Hey, honey." My father's voice filled the foyer. The same voice that had told me we could not afford things. The same voice that had promised to make it to my events and never showed. The same voice that had lied to me for 19 years. "Robert, where are you?" "At the conference in Boston, remember? The Medical Equipment Expo. Boring presentations all day. I'd much rather be home with you and the kids." "Which hotel are you staying at?" "The Marriott downtown." "Why?" "No reason. I just wanted to make sure I could reach you if needed. Is everything okay? You sound strange." "Everything's fine. When will you be home?" "Tomorrow evening, like I told you. Sunday dinner with the family, right?" "Right. Robert, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me." "Of course. What is it? Are you really in Boston?" There was a pause. Just a second, but we all heard it. "Of course I'm in Boston. Margaret, what's going on? Because there's a young man standing in our foyer who says you're at his mother's apartment 10 miles from here." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear my father breathing through the phone, rapid and panicked. "Margaret, I can explain." "Is it true? Do you have another family?" "Margaret, please, let me come home and explain." "Is it true?" "It's complicated." "It's a yes or no question, Robert. Do you have another family?" Another silence. Then, barely audible, "Yes." The word hung in the air like a bomb that had just detonated. Margaret's phone slipped from her hand and clattered on the marble floor. Emily started crying. Benjamin stood there with his mouth open, looking like someone had punched him in the stomach. 23 years, Margaret whispered. 23 years of marriage, and it was all a lie. "It wasn't all a lie," I said, though I did not know why I was trying to comfort her. She had lived the life that should have been shared with my mother and me. We heard a car screech into the driveway. Through the window, I could see my father's BMW. Of course, he drove a BMW to his real family while driving a Honda to visit us. He must have broken every speed limit getting here. He burst through the door, his face red, sweat staining his expensive shirt. When he saw me standing there with his real family, he stopped dead. "Jackson, what have you done?" "I told them the truth, Dad. Or should I call you Robert? I'm not really sure anymore." "You had no right." "I had every right. I'm your son. I've been your son for 19 years, even if you've been pretending I don't exist." "I never pretended you didn't exist." "Really? Then why isn't your name on my birth certificate? Why have you never claimed me on your taxes? Why do Benjamin and Emily not know about me?" Margaret stood up slowly, and despite the tears streaming down her face, she looked formidable. "Robert, how could you do this? How could you lie to all of us for so long?" "Margaret, you don't understand. It just happened. For 20 years, it just happened for 20 years. I was going to tell you." "When? When were you going to tell me that you had another son? When he graduated? When he got married? When you were on your deathbed? I didn't know how. Get out. Margaret, please. Get out of my house. This is my house, too." "No, it's not. This house is in my name, bought with my trust fund. You're just a guest who's been lying to me for 2 decades. Get out." "Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care. Go to Linda's apartment. Go to hell. Just get out." My father looked around the room at the ruins of his perfect life. His wife, who would not look at him. His legitimate children, who stared at him with disgust. Me, the illegitimate son whose existence he had tried to hide. "This is all your fault," he said to me. "No," I said. This is all your fault. I'm just the consequences you've been avoiding for 19 years. He stood there for a moment, looking lost, like he could not understand how his carefully constructed lies had fallen apart so quickly. Then he turned and walked out, leaving us all standing in that beautiful foyer, trying to figure out what happened next. I should go, I said. Wait, Margaret said. I need to understand. Tell me everything. So I did. I told them about growing up thinking we were poor, about my mother working 3 jobs to keep us afloat, about wearing second-hand clothes and eating generic food, and feeling guilty every time I needed something, about selling plasma to afford textbooks, about not being able to afford college application fees while my father was paying Harvard tuition. That's monstrous, Emily said when I finished. How could Dad do that? The same way he could lie to all of you, I said. He's very good at compartmentalizing. What are you going to do now? Benjamin asked. His earlier hostility had faded, replaced by something that looked like sympathy. I don't know. Try to finish college, I guess. Help my mom find a lawyer. Try to get the child support we should have been getting all along. I'll help, Margaret said suddenly. What? I'll help you and your mother. I have access to all of Robert's financial records. I know exactly how much he makes, where the money is, what assets he has. We'll make sure you get everything you're owed. Why would you help us? Because you're victims just like we are, and because no child should have to grow up the way you did while their father lives like this. She gestured around the mansion. This is obscene when you've been selling plasma to survive. I don't want charity. It's not charity. It's justice. Robert makes over $300,000 a year. He's worth about $4 million in assets. You and your mother have been living on $24,000 a year. That's not just wrong, it's criminal. $4 million. The number did not even sound real. Between his salary, bonuses, stock options, and investments, yes, at least $4 million. I sat down heavily on their leather couch, my head spinning, for $1 million, while my mother's hands cracked from washing dishes, while I ate ramen for dinner, while we stressed about every single dollar. There's something else, Margaret said. If Robert has been hiding assets to avoid paying appropriate child support, that's fraud. He could go to prison. I don't want him to go to prison, I said, though I was not sure why. What do you want? Emily asked. I want my mother to be able to quit her 3 jobs. I want to finish college without wondering how I'll pay for it. I want to stop feeling guilty for existing. Then that's what we'll make happen, Margaret said. Over the next several hours, Margaret showed me financial documents that made my head spin. Tax returns showing income one could not have imagined. Investment accounts worth hundreds of thousands. Properties besides the Riverside house. Cars, boats, even a small plane he co-owned with some business partners. He told us money was tight. I kept saying. He told us we had to be careful with every penny. While he was spending $5,000 a month on country club fees, Margaret said bitterly. Benjamin had been quiet for a while, typing on his laptop. I found something, he said. Dad's been writing off his trips to see you as business expenses. He's been committing tax fraud. That's probably why he was so desperate to keep us secret, Margaret said. An audit would have exposed everything. As the afternoon wore on, an unexpected thing happened. The anger in the room began to shift from being directed at each other to being directed at the one person who deserved it. My father, Margaret, Benjamin, Emily, and I found ourselves united in our sense of betrayal. You know what the worst part is? Emily said, I thought we had a perfect family. I used to brag to my friends about how great my dad was. I know the feeling, I said. I used to defend him to my mom when she seemed frustrated with him. I thought he was doing his best. He was doing his best, Benjamin said. His best to maintain 2 separate lies. Margaret had started making calls to lawyers, financial advisors, and accountants. With each call, she became more formidable. This was not a woman who was going to be destroyed by her husband's betrayal. This was a woman who was going to destroy him. "I've frozen all the joint accounts," she announced after one call. "He can't access any of our shared assets until this is resolved." "Can you do that?" I asked. "I can do whatever I want. My name is on everything because I insisted on it when we got married. My parents were wealthy and wanted to make sure their money was protected. Robert agreed because he wanted access to that wealth. Now it's going to bite him." My phone had been buzzing with calls from my mother. I finally answered. "Jackson, where are you?" "I've been worried sick." "I'm in Riverside, Mom, at the Hayes house." "Oh, Jackson, what have you done?" I told them the truth. "And Mom, you're not going to believe what I've learned about Dad's finances." I put her on speaker and let Margaret explain about the millions in assets, the tax fraud, the properties and investments. My mother was silent for so long, I thought she had hung up. "Linda," Margaret said, "are you still there?" "I'm here," my mother said, her voice strange. $4 million? At least. While I've been working myself to death for 20 years. "I'm going to make sure you get everything you're owed," Margaret said. "Every penny of back child support, plus damages for the fraud." "Why would you help us?" my mother asked. "Because we're all victims of the same man, and because I have the resources to fight him, and you don't. Let me be your weapon." It was a strange alliance, but it was forming right there over speakerphone. The two women my father had betrayed, joining forces to hold him accountable. As evening fell, I realized I had been there for hours. Benjamin offered to order pizza, which felt surreal. Having dinner with the family, I had just blown up. "This is weird," Emily said as we sat around their massive dining table eating pizza off china plates that probably cost more than our entire set of dishes. "Very weird," I agreed. "But also kind of nice," she added. "I mean, I've always wanted a sibling closer to my age. Benjamin's great, but he's always been the perfect older brother. It would be nice to have someone who gets what it's like to be the younger kid." "Emily, I'm not really your brother. You're literally my brother. We have the same father. But we didn't grow up together. We're strangers." "We don't have to be," Benjamin said. "I mean, this situation is insane, but it's not your fault. You didn't ask to be born into this mess any more than we did. You're not angry at me for destroying your family?" "You didn't destroy anything," Margaret said firmly. "Robert destroyed our family 20 years ago when he decided to lie to all of us. You just revealed the destruction that was already there." My phone buzzed with a text from my father. "We need to talk." I showed it to everyone. "Don't respond," Margaret advised. "Anything you say to him can be used against us in court. Let the lawyers handle all communication from now on." "Us?" I asked. "Us. We're in this together now." Another text from my father. "Please, Jackson, let me explain." Then another. "You don't understand the whole situation." And another. "I never meant to hurt anyone." Benjamin laughed bitterly. He never meant to hurt anyone. He just accidentally maintained two families for 20 years. He never meant to get caught, Emily said. Margaret's phone started ringing. "Robert calling." She declined the call. It immediately rang again. "Should I answer?" she asked. "Put it on speaker," I said. "We should all hear what he has to say." She answered on the fifth ring. "Robert." "Margaret, please, we need to talk. This is all a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding? Jackson is a misunderstanding." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean? Explain to me how having another family for 20 years is a misunderstanding." "It's complicated." "Then uncomplicate it. We're all here. Jackson, Benjamin, Emily, and me. We're all listening. Explain yourself. Jackson is there. I'm here, Dad, I said. Jackson, why did you do this? Why did you destroy everything? I didn't destroy anything. I just turned on the lights. You don't understand what you've done. You've ruined multiple lives. No, Robert, Margaret said. You ruined multiple lives. Jackson, just expose the ruins. This could have been handled privately. Privately? Like you've been handling it privately for 20 years? How's that working out? Margaret, please. Think about the children. I am thinking about the children. All of them. Including the one you've been hiding in poverty while you lived in luxury with us. They weren't living in poverty. Dad, I interrupted. Mom works 3 jobs. I sell plasma. We shop at food banks. What would you call that? I gave you what I could. You gave us $24,000 a year while making $350,000. You gave us less than you spend on Emily's horses. That's different. How? How is it different? Because they're your real family, and we're your mistake. You're not a mistake. Then what am I? Because I'm certainly not your son. Sons get their father's name on their birth certificate. Sons get acknowledged. Sons get supported. I supported you. You paid us off. There's a difference. The conversation went in circles for another 10 minutes, with my father alternating between justifications, accusations, and pleas. Finally, Margaret had enough. Robert, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. My lawyer will be in contact. Don't come to the house. Don't contact the children. And don't even think about hiding assets, because I know exactly where everything is. Margaret, you can't just... She hung up. We all sat in silence for a moment. Then Emily started laughing. Not happy laughter, but the kind of hysterical laughter that comes when everything is so absurd you don't know how else to react. This morning I woke up thinking my biggest problem was my calculus test, she said. Now I find out my entire life has been a lie. Not your entire life, Margaret said. Your relationship with your father was built on lies, but everything else was real. Your achievements, your friendships, your horses, that's all real. My horses that were paid for with money that should have been supporting Jackson. That's not your fault, I said. You didn't know. But I should have known. I should have questioned why Dad was gone so much. I should have wondered why he was so secretive about his work. We all should have known, Benjamin said. But we trusted him. That's what you do with family. You trust them. What do we do now? Emily asked. Now we rebuild, Margaret said, without lies this time. I stayed for another hour, helping Margaret go through financial documents, marking things that looked suspicious. Benjamin researched divorce lawyers, finding the best ones in Connecticut. Emily sat with us, asking questions, trying to understand how her father had pulled off such an elaborate deception. Where did he say he was when he was with you? She asked me. Work trips, conferences, client meetings, the same things he told you when he was with us. So he was lying to everyone all the time. Every single day for 20 years. How does someone do that? How does someone lie that much and not break? I think he convinced himself it was for everyone's benefit, Margaret said, that he was protecting all of us from a difficult truth. Or he's just a sociopath, Benjamin suggested. That too, Margaret agreed. As I was getting ready to leave, Margaret pulled me aside. I want you to know that this isn't your fault, she said. Robert created this situation. You're just as much a victim as the rest of us. I still feel guilty for destroying your family. Our family was built on lies. It needed to be destroyed so we could build something real. And Jackson, you're part of our family now, whether you want to be or not. You're Benjamin and Emily's brother. That's just biology. What we do with that relationship is up to us. I don't know how to have siblings. Neither do they, not really. Benjamin and Emily have always had each other. but they've never had to integrate someone new into their lives. This will be a learning experience for everyone. She handed me a business card for a lawyer. Call him tomorrow. He'll help your mother file for the back child support you're owed. We can't afford a lawyer like this. I'm paying for it. Consider it a gift from one victim to another. Margaret, I can't. You can and you will. Robert stole your childhood by keeping you in poverty. The least I can do is help you reclaim some of what you're owed. As I walked to my car, Benjamin and Emily came outside. This is weird, Benjamin said, but I want you to know that I don't blame you for any of this. Same, Emily added, and I know this sounds strange, but I'm kind of glad to have another brother, even if we're meeting under the worst possible circumstances. You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it to be nice. I'm saying it because it's true. You're our brother. That's just a fact. And maybe when all this legal stuff is over, we can figure out what that means. I'd like that, I said, surprised to find that I meant it. The drive home felt different than the drive there. I had gone to Riverside to destroy my father's lies, and I had succeeded. But I had also found something unexpected. A family I never knew I had, and the possibility of relationships I had never imagined. My mother was waiting for me when I got home, still in her diner uniform. She had gotten someone to cover the rest of her shift, too anxious to work. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. I told her about Margaret's determination to help us, about the millions in assets we never knew existed, about Benjamin and Emily's unexpected acceptance, about the possibility of getting hundreds of thousands in back child support. I can't process this, she kept saying. For $1 million. He had $4 million while I was skipping meals to make sure you could eat. Mom, Margaret wants to help us. She's paying for a lawyer. A real lawyer, not legal aid. Why would she do that? Because she's angry, and because she has the resources to fight him in a way we never did. What about the children? They must hate us. They don't. They're angry at him, not us. Emily said she's glad to have another brother. This is all so surreal. I know. This morning, I was a poor kid with a father who couldn't afford to support me. Tonight, I'm the illegitimate son of a millionaire with siblings who want to get to know me. My mother started crying then. Not sad tears, but tears of relief and exhaustion, and 20 years of carrying a burden she should never have had to carry. You know what I keep thinking about, she said. All the times you said you were fine when you weren't. All the times you went without so we could pay bills. All the times you felt guilty for needing things that every child should have. And the whole time, your father had millions. We're going to make him pay, Mom. Literally and figuratively. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of lawyers, accountants, and investigators. Margaret was true to her word, paying for the best legal representation money could buy. Our lawyer, Mr. Chun, was a bulldog who specialized in high-asset divorce and child support cases. Your father has been committing fraud for 20 years, he told us at our first meeting. Not just against you, but against the IRS, his employer, everyone. We're going to document every penny he's hidden and make sure you get what you're owed. The investigation revealed even more than we had initially discovered. My father had been hiding money in offshore accounts, investing in properties under shell companies, and using his business to launder personal expenses. He had claimed me as a dependent on his taxes some years for the deduction, even though he barely supported us. This is criminal, Mr. Chin said. We're not just talking about civil penalties. He could go to prison. Part of me felt bad for my father, watching his carefully constructed life fall apart. But then I would think about my mother's cracked hands, about the nights I went to bed hungry, about all the opportunities one missed because we couldn't afford them, and the sympathy would evaporate. Margaret filed for divorce on grounds of fraud and adultery because She had been smart enough to keep her assets separate and put everything in her name. She was able to freeze my father out immediately. He went from living in a mansion to staying in a cheap motel almost overnight. He tried to contact me repeatedly, leaving voicemails that alternated between anger and desperation. "Jackson, please call me back. We need to talk about what you've done. Your mother put you up to this, didn't she? This is her revenge. I'm your father. Doesn't that mean anything to you? You've ruined everything. I hope you're happy. Please, son. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Let me make this right." I never responded. There was nothing he could say that would undo 20 years of lies and neglect. Meanwhile, an unexpected thing was happening. I was getting to know Benjamin and Emily. We started texting, awkwardly at first, then more naturally. Benjamin would send me pictures from Harvard, telling me about his classes, his research, his girlfriend. Emily would ask for advice about boys and complain about her homework, like I had been her brother all along. "Is this weird for you?" Emily asked during a video call one evening. "Everything about this is weird. But good weird or bad weird? I don't know yet. I've spent my whole life as an only child. Now suddenly I have siblings." "Half-siblings," Benjamin corrected, joining the call. "Don't be pedantic," Emily told him. "We have the same father. That makes us siblings." "A father who lied to all of us," Benjamin said. "Which is actually something we have in common," Emily pointed out. "We're all victims of the same con artist." It was true. As different as our lives had been, we shared the experience of being betrayed by the same person. It was a strange foundation for a relationship, but it was something. The legal proceedings took months. My father tried every trick to hide assets, but Margaret knew his finances better than he did. She had been managing the family investments for years and knew exactly where every penny was. "I found another account," she told Mr. Chun during one meeting. "A Cayman Islands account with 300,000. How did you find it?" I remembered he went to the Caymans 5 years ago for what he said was a business trip, but his company doesn't do business there. So I had a forensic accountant investigate. Every discovery added to the mountain of evidence against my father. Tax fraud, wire fraud, insurance fraud. The list kept growing. The IRS got involved, freezing his assets and launching a criminal investigation. My mother and I were awarded $500,000 in back child support, plus ongoing support until I turned 25. It was less than we were technically owed, but it was more money than either of us had ever imagined having. "What do we do with it?" my mother asked, staring at the check. "First, you quit your jobs. All of them." "I can't just quit." "Yes, you can. You've worked yourself to death for 20 years. It's time to rest." "But what will I do?" "Whatever you want. Go back to school. Travel. Sleep until noon. Whatever makes you happy." She did quit her jobs, all 3 of them. Then she enrolled in nursing school, something she had always dreamed of but never thought possible. At 42, she was finally getting to pursue the life she wanted. I transferred to the state university with a full ride, courtesy of my father's enforced generosity. For the first time in my life, I could focus on studying without worrying about money. I did not have to work 3 jobs. I did not have to sell plasma. I did not have to eat ramen unless I wanted to. It was disorienting, this sudden financial freedom. I found myself still checking prices at the grocery store, still buying generic brands, still feeling guilty for spending money on things I wanted rather than just things I needed. Old habits born from poverty don't die easily. My relationship with Benjamin and Emily continued to develop. We met for coffee, then dinner, then started spending weekends together. It was awkward at first, trying to build sibling relationships as adults, but gradually we found our rhythm. Benjamin helped me with my pre-med applications. Using his Harvard connections, to get me interviews at top programs. Emily and I bonded over our shared love of bad reality TV and good coffee. We created new traditions, inside jokes, shared memories that had nothing to do with our father. You know what's funny? Emily said one day while we were hanging out at a cafe near my university, Dad spent 20 years keeping us apart, and now we're closer to each other than we are to him. It was true. My father's great fear had been his two families meeting, and now that we had formed our own family that excluded him entirely. The criminal trial was a media sensation. Local business executive maintained secret double life. Read the headlines. The story of a successful businessman who had juggled two families for 20 years while committing massive financial fraud was irresistible to the press. I testified at the trial, describing growing up in poverty while my father lived in luxury with his other family. My mother testified about working 3 jobs while he hid millions in assets. Margaret testified about the elaborate lies he had told to maintain his deception. But the most damaging testimony came from Benjamin. My father taught me that integrity was everything, he said on the stand. He said a man's word was his bond. He said character mattered more than success. And the whole time, he was lying to everyone in his life. He's not the man he pretended to be. He's a fraud in every sense of the word. My father was found guilty on multiple counts of fraud and tax evasion. He was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison and ordered to pay over $2 million in restitution and fines. His business reputation was destroyed. His professional licenses were revoked. Everything he had built through lies came crashing down. I went to see him once before he reported to prison. He looked older, smaller, diminished. The confident salesman was gone, replaced by a broken man who had lost everything. Why? I asked him, why did you do it? He was quiet for a long time. I don't know, he finally said. It started as a mistake, and then I didn't know how to fix it without losing everything. So instead you lost everything anyway? Yes. Was it worth it? No. Nothing was worth losing you, or Benjamin and Emily, or your mother and Margaret. I traded real relationships for a fantasy I couldn't sustain. Do you love us? Any of us? I love all of you. That's what made it so hard. I loved 2 families and couldn't figure out how to choose. So you chose to lie to everyone instead. Yes. That's not love, Dad. That's selfishness. I know that now. I left that meeting feeling empty. I had wanted some grand explanation, some reason that would make it all make sense. But there was no reason. Just a man who had made selfish choices and hurt everyone who loved him. Life after the trial was strange. My mother and I moved to a nicer apartment. Nothing fancy, but clean and safe and ours. She threw herself into nursing school with the dedication of someone making up for lost time. I focused on my pre-med studies, determined to become the doctor I had always dreamed of being. Benjamin graduated from Harvard Medical School and started his residency at Mass General. He invited me to his graduation, introducing me to his friends as his brother. No qualification, no half or step, just brother. Emily got into Yale, following in her mother's footsteps. At her high school graduation, she insisted I sit with the family, not as an outsider, but as her brother. When she gave her valedictorian speech, she talked about how the past year had taught her that family isn't about perfection, but about choosing to love each other through imperfection. Margaret became something like a second mother to me. She would invite me to dinner, ask about my classes, celebrate my successes. She helped me navigate the pre-med process, using her connections in the medical field to set up shadowing opportunities and research positions. You know, I'm not trying to replace your mother, she told me once. I know, but having 2 people who care about me isn't a bad thing. No, it's not. The money from the settlement changed everything and nothing. My mother and I were no longer poor, but we still carried the habits and fears of poverty. We still saved obsessively, still questioned every purchase, still felt guilty for wanting things. It's called financial trauma, my therapist explained. 20 years of scarcity doesn't just disappear because your bank account changes. She was right. The money could fix the practical problems, tuition, rent, food, but it could not erase the years of stress and struggle. It could not undo the childhood I had lost or the relationship with my father that had never really existed. But slowly, gradually we healed. My mother learned to spend money on herself without guilt. I learned to accept help without feeling like a burden. We both learned that we deserved good things, that wanting more than bare survival was not greed, but normal human desire. I got into medical school, not Harvard like Benjamin, but a good state school with an excellent program. Benjamin helped me study for the MCAT, spending hours on video calls going over practice problems. Emily designed flashcards for me, color-coded and organized with the precision of someone who had been preparing for tests her whole life. "We're going to have 2 doctors in the family," Emily said proudly. 3, Margaret corrected. "I'm a doctor too, remember?" "Right, 3 doctors, and whatever Emily decides to be." "I'm thinking lawyer," Emily said. "Someone needs to make sure we never get conned again." We laughed, but there was truth in it. My father's betrayal had made us all more cautious, more careful about trust, but it had also brought us together in unexpected ways. The family he had tried so hard to keep separate had become one family, united not by him, but by our shared experience of his deception. I graduated from medical school 7 years after discovering that Facebook profile. My mother, Margaret, Benjamin, and Emily all came to my graduation. My father, who had been released from prison by then, was not invited. He sent a card with a check I did not cash and a letter I did not read. At the graduation dinner, Margaret raised a toast to Jackson, who had every reason to be bitter but chose to be better instead. To all of us, I countered, who chose to build something real from the ruins of lies. Today, I'm a resident in emergency medicine at a public hospital. I chose emergency medicine because I wanted to help people in crisis, people who feel like their world is falling apart. I know what that feels like, and I know that sometimes a single person choosing to help can change everything. My mother is a nurse in the pediatric ward at the same hospital. She loves her work, loves caring for children, loves finally doing something that feels meaningful. She's dating a nice man who knows our whole story and doesn't care. He treats her like she deserves to be treated, with respect and genuine affection. Benjamin is a cardiologist in Boston, married to a wonderful woman who makes him laugh. Emily is in law school at Yale, specializing in family law and financial crimes. She says our experience inspired her to help other families dealing with financial betrayal. Margaret remarried last year to a man who values honesty above everything else. At the wedding, Benjamin, Emily, and I all walked her down the aisle. It was unconventional, but then again, so is our family. We have dinners together once a month. All of us, this strange, blended family born from betrayal, but held together by choice. We laugh about things that once would have been painful. We support each other through challenges. We've become the family none of us expected, but all of us needed. My father lives alone in a small apartment in Nevada. He reached out recently, asking if we could talk, if there was any chance of forgiveness. I thought about it for a long time before responding. "Forgiveness isn't mine to give," I wrote. "You'll have to find that for yourself. I don't hate him anymore. Hate takes too much energy, and I have better things to do with my energy. I have patients to treat, a family to love, a life to live. The opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. and I have become indifferent to the man who was supposed to be my father but chose to be a stranger instead. Sometimes I think about the life I might have had if my father had been honest from the beginning, if he had divorced Margaret or never married her in the first place, if he had acknowledged me as his son and supported us appropriately. Would I have gone to Phillips Exeter and Harvard like Benjamin? Would I have had horses like Emily? Would I have grown up feeling worthy and wanted? But then I think about who those experiences made me. The hunger taught me empathy for others who struggle. The poverty taught me resourcefulness and resilience. The lies taught me to value truth above comfort. I would not be who I am without the challenges I faced. And I like who I am. My name is Jackson Turner. When I was 19 years old, I discovered my father's secret Facebook profile and learned that the poverty I had grown up in was a choice he made, not a circumstance we were stuck with. That discovery destroyed the life I thought I knew, but gave me the chance to build a better one. The family I have now, my mother, Margaret, Benjamin, Emily, and all the people we've added along the way, is nothing like the family my father tried to create. It's messier and more complicated, but it's also more honest and more loving. We chose each other not because of blood or obligation, but because we genuinely want to be in each other's lives. My father tried to have everything by lying to everyone. He ended up with nothing and no one. Meanwhile, those of us he betrayed found truth, found each other, and found that sometimes the best families are the ones you build from the ruins of the ones that failed you. Thank you for listening to my story of growing up faster than I ever wanted to. I've left 2 more stories on your screen, both from young men who learned that sometimes becoming an adult doesn't happen at 18. It happens the moment your family needs you to be strong. Click on whichever one speaks to you. And if you want to join our community of people who understand what it's like to be forced to grow up overnight, that notification bell is waiting. Until tomorrow, remember, age is just a number, but courage defines who you really are.